What's up guys? Welcome to the video. Let's hop right in. Physical exercise has been a common theme throughout human history and evolution. Our ancestors used to have to survive through a hunter-gatherer lifestyle in which they had to rely on physical activity every day. Nowadays, with the comforts of the modern world through human innovation, that is no longer the case. Humans no longer need to travel thousands of miles for meals. Instead, they can just open up their iPhones and place an order on DoorDash from the comfort of their couch. I grew up playing sports, so I've been active my whole life. But there have been times, such as during the COVID-19 pandemic, where getting out wasn't always so easy. Thinking back to those times in my life, I felt more anxious, I had a lower mood, I almost felt trapped. Looking back at these experiences now, I couldn't help but wonder if this was due to the increased sedentary lifestyle imposed upon me from the pandemic, or for some other reason. So I decided to do some research. I'm going to share with you guys an article I dissected, and from there you can make your own conclusions on mental health and how it coincides with physical activity. But before we go any further in the video, I just wanted to say that mental health is definitely something that has been associated with a stigma in the past. I want you to know that the bravest thing that you can ever do in your life is to ask for help, especially when you're struggling. I've struggled with mental health in my life, and I have people close to me who have also had similar struggles in their life. Mental health is no joke, and I'm really glad to see that it's something that we're taking more seriously as a society, but we're not where we need to be yet. If you are struggling, know that you're not alone. Life is not easy. There's gonna be ups and downs. There's no hot without cold. There's no good without bad, you know? I know it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes, but you can get through this. If you ever need someone to talk to, my doors are always open. I will always respond. Always. Also, the phone number for the suicide and crisis hotline is 988. Their phones are open 24/7, 365. If you ever need extra support, do not hesitate to call them. Tomorrow needs you. Know you matter, and know you're not alone. Okay, the study I'm looking at today is called The Protective Effects of Physical Activity on Mental Health Outcomes During the COVID-19 Pandemic. I'll be sure to put the names of the authors and the institution which created this study at the end of the video, along with any other citations of external resources I used to create this video. The study was published on December 30th, 2022. It was defined as a correlation study. The primary endpoint of this study was to determine whether physical activity at the onset of the pandemic was in any way related to feelings of depression or anxiety over time. The secondary endpoint of this study was to determine if this relationship between mental health outcomes and physical activities was mediated by stressful appraisals. Now, if you aren't really too sure off the top of your head what stressful appraisals are, don't worry. I honestly didn't really know what it was either, so I did a little research. Stressful appraisals are basically just how someone perceives a stressor, whether someone's cognition sees an event as a threat or an opportunity. For example, say you lose your job. A lot of people are going to view this as a threat, and rightfully so, because it's going to be hard to pay their bills. But others might view the same situation as an opportunity to move on with their life and get a new job. Maybe see this as a positive outcome. So the study had 319 participants that lived throughout the US and Canada. All participants were surveyed to assess physical activity, stress, and mental health outcomes at the beginning of the 6-month trial period. All participants also did give their written consent to be a part of the study. So when the researchers were defining physical activity for the study, they actually broke it up into 2 categories. The first category was physical activity done at work, and the second was physical activity done during a person's free time. Now that I set up the study for you, let's jump into the findings. Researchers found that participants that engaged in leisure time physical activity would be more likely to define their COVID-19 experience as within their control. This in turn led this population of people to report lower incidences of depressive symptoms later on in the pandemic. On the other hand, participants who engaged in lower amounts of leisure time exercise initially were quote-unquote inversely related to feelings of depression over time. Another quote from the study: "Our findings are consistent with the view that physical activity may alleviate depressive symptoms, but the inclusion of physical activity need not be of high intensity nor of a prolonged duration, as frequent low-intensity activity was accompanied by the most sustained benefits." To me, this was an important conclusion drawn by the researchers, as it cements the point that you don't need to be an Olympian or run marathons to get some of the mental benefits of working out. Research researchers also went on to say, quote unquote, the mechanisms underlying the actions of physical activity are uncertain, given the wide array of biological changes induced by exercise. Physical activity promotes the release of beta endorphins that bind to the brain opiate receptors, but the effect of beta endorphins may result in positive or negative experiences. So beta endorphins are neuropeptides that are released in response to pain or stress. After they're released, they bind mu opiate receptors in the brain. This consequentially will have an analgesic effect on the body, i.e. it blocks pain. Researchers went on to say, quote unquote, exercise can also release other chemical messengers like noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin, all of which play an important role in regulating mood. And I do want you to know that some of these chemical messengers that the researchers are talking about are the primary targets of antidepressant medications. Major depressive disorder, also known as MDD, occurs due to an imbalance of neurotransmitters. The big three neurotransmitters involved in regulating mood are dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. Dopamine is known as the pleasure, the feel-good neurotransmitter. Norepi helps with energy, and serotonin is most commonly associated with mood and impulsivity. But all three are important for cognitive function and have overlapping effects. These three are known as our monoamines. It is widely known and accepted that monoamine levels are decreased in patients with MDD. Generally, first-line medications for treating MDD are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. To keep it simple, these medications work just by increasing serotonin levels within the brain. So the fact that researchers are claiming that exercise can boost the release of our homemade painkillers, i.e. beta endorphins, and two of three of our most important neurotransmitters in mood regulation and cognitive function, i.e. dopamine and serotonin. I did want to note that researchers did not note anything specifically about an increase in norepi release, but I do believe that exercise does cause an increased release in this neurotransmitter as well. Furthermore, researchers went on to say, when exercise was accompanied by a diet low in calories, inflammation was reduced, and this was accompanied by improved signs associated with illnesses such as type 2 diabetes and coronary artery disease. The combination of diet and exercise likewise had superior effects in diminishing depressive symptoms relative to treatment alone. So again, all they're saying here is if you eat right, exercise regularly, and take your medications properly, this will lead to the best treatment outcomes for you, which makes perfect sense. Obviously, we're going to see better disease management if a person is willing to do all three of these things rather than just one or two of them. Researchers also noted that physical activity may also decrease depressive symptoms due to establishing resilience in the body. Quote unquote, physical activity can promote stress resilience and serve as an effective coping strategy. They went on to say, furthermore, physical activity promotes resilience against psychosocial stressors. Built up resilience may help a person develop better coping strategies and have a more positive outlook on what may be perceived as an overwhelming situation. We found that leisure time physical activity favored appraisals of the COVID-19 situation as less threatening, less uncontrollable, and more controlled by oneself. To me, this sounds like they're saying here that exercise may benefit people by helping them build up resilience over time. This can be both physical and mental resilience, which can be utilized later in life to get through difficult or stressful situations. Finally, researchers concluded that engaging in activities at higher frequency and intensity was more protective of mental health. However, it would be important to note that positive effects of physical activity have also been reported with frequent but short duration low intensity exercise, such as a 30-minute walk 3 to 5 times a week. Researchers ended by stating that their findings supported the idea that physical exercise can lead to lower depressive symptoms over time, especially in stressful situations. Here are some limitations of the study that the researchers listed and that I found on my own. 2 variables were being measured at the same time: stressful appraisals and depressive moods. Participants were self-selected, and their responses were retrospective self-report. This is open to buy. All the data collected was just correlational. The example researchers gave to explain this was, while exercise may act to protect against depression, it is equally likely that individuals with depression were just less likely to participate in recreational exercise. And the participants that made up the study were mostly white female. Obviously, this is not an accurate demographic of the US population or the world population in general. Finally, the researchers declared that they had no competing interests or bias when creating this study. So here are my takeaways from the study. Obviously, more research needs to be done in this field, but I do think it's clear that our mental health is directly impacted by our physical lifestyle. I found it really interesting that exercise had positive impacts on people's moods by increasing the release of endogenous protective chemicals in our body, such as beta endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin. I also found it interesting that researchers concluded that people can build up their physical and mental resilience through exercise, which they can utilize later in life. So exercise helps protect against MDD through physical, mental, and a chemical means. Pretty cool. I also really like that they mentioned that even low intensity exercise, if done regularly, can have the same positive impacts as high intensity workouts. Personally, for me, engaging in physical exercise, whether that's running, lifting, or playing a sport, has done so much more for me than building muscle or just getting into better shape. One thing that wasn't really mentioned at all in the study is that working out consistently can really help give someone a sense of pride or purpose, knowing that they're improving themselves and getting better every day. That is something that motivates me to keep getting after it. Also, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that going for one walk is going to cure your depression or that you should just stop taking your meds and go work out every day. Not at all. Do not do that. And don't expect exercise to be some magical cure that'll work overnight, because it's not. It's just something that you can utilize as a tool synergistically with everything else you're doing to help improve symptoms of depression. It does take time to build good habits and get into a good rhythm. So if you are thinking about trying to add more exercise to your life, I would say go for it, but don't do it drastically. Do not flip your lifestyle on its head overnight and expect to stick with it. Start small and slowly incorporate more exercise into your lifestyle. Once you get comfortable and into the routine of the small changes you made, then you can build on it. I know it's not easy, but you can do this. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. That's about all I have. Let me know what you guys thought of the study down in the comments. Feel free to check it out if you want more information or if you want to read it yourself. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I do hope you got something of value out of the video. All right, I'll see what you guys have to say in the comments.